Hey everyone, so in today's video, I'm going to be talking everything about the do's and don'ts of the statement of purpose. These are some of the things that I learned in the hard way when I was writing mine. So I hope that you don't do the same mistakes and it helps you in formatting your SOP. The first thing that you have to keep in mind is when you're writing the SOP, you have to start as early as possible. And by this, I mean you don't have to start like 6 months prior. But if you know that the CAAPID starts in March, then try formatting your SOP at least 2 months prior. I say this because if you plan on writing your SOP or starting your SOP once the CAAPID opens, then there is the time pressure, there is the character limit pressure. So you're not really doing your best in including all of the circumstances that you have been wanting to include. So you'd rather start early when maybe you're preparing for your INBD or something. Just think about the things that you want to mention. So when I was preparing for my INBD, whenever I wanted break, I went ahead and jotted down points that I probably want to mention in my SOP. My SOP ended up being like 1.5 pages long. I had to edit like 50% of it when I was editing. But at least in the back of my head, I knew that I have everything that needs to be written down and I don't have to worry about thinking what else do I need to include. How lengthy should you be writing your SOP? So when you start writing it early, you'll naturally end up including a lot of instances that you want to write in your SOP. It's okay, whatever number of pages or whatever number of paragraphs you've written it down in the draft of your SOP, because when you sit down to edit, you clearly have an idea that maybe this is something that needs to be written down. So it's okay if it's, your draft is as lengthy as it can be, because at the end of the day, you do have a character limit that you have to stick to. Now, what to include in your SOP, that is something which I have spoken about in the previous video, where I break down each of the paragraphs and what are the things that I've mentioned in each of the paragraphs. You can go ahead and watch that. I will leave a link in the description box below. The next is that SOP is basically a story about your life, a story about yourself that you're presenting to the admissions committee. So if you can write it in a way that you're mentioning a lot of experiences, you're mentioning a lot of examples from your life, that would be something really interesting when they read. And that would also have a free-flowing manner to the SOP, which makes it stand out. What are some of the don'ts of SOP? The first thing that we all know is that you cannot parrot what you've written in your CV or resume, because CV or resume is mostly what you did sticking to the schedule, right? So if you went to like 10 conferences, you don't have to mention all of the experiences in all of these conferences. Of course, you're not going to have the character limit or the word limit to do that, but try and stick to those experiences wherein you learn something, basically. So if you presented a paper, if you won an award, or if you learned something from a different speaker, those are the things you should be mentioning in your SOP. And of course, do not mention generic reasons. And what do I mean by generic reasons? Now, for example, if you say something like, I had crooked tooth growing up and I went to the orthodontist every month and I saw how he changed my smile and that inspired me to become a dentist. While the story may be true, there is always a way that you can word it and the way that you can put it. Some of the things that you're definitely mentioning is what it made you feel like or what it made you experience, because the number of people who are actually getting braces and the chances of them writing that is high. So if there are certain instances like maybe you're a cleft patient or your sibling was a cleft patient, went to the orthodontist, or they put the palatal expander, which basically improved your functioning, breathing, chewing, things like that are different and unique to you. Or even something as simple as, you were a stubborn child, you wouldn't listen to anyone, but your pedodontist managed to convince you to brush and floss 2 times a day. Now, those are the things that are very different and unique to you, right? Those are the things you should be mentioning in your SOP. And then, of course, do not make your statement of purpose sound academic. There is a reason why they're asking for a statement of purpose. You want to present yourself as the person that you are. Of course, you're stressed. Of course, you're thinking about, hey, these are the things that I want to be mentioning. These are things that I've done. I've done so many things that it won't fit in my SOP. but you cannot ignore the other things that makes us human. Like, if you're volunteered or if you've been part of a project where you have interacted with a lot of people, collaborated, made something, those are some things which are really unique. And, when the admissions committee, reads that, they will basically know that this person can actually have that work-life balance. So your statement of purpose should not be all about, adjectives. You shouldn't be saying, I'm a responsible clinician, I have a creative mindset. It's not that you shouldn't have adjectives in your SOP, you should be having. But what I would suggest rather is you building on an example. What was the reason that you called yourself a creative mindset in school? Did you organize an event wherein you decorated the halls with some recyclable waste? And those are the things which actually shows that you're creative, and that examples speaks for themselves rather than you tooting your own horn. Now, the last point is probably one of the most important points. You do not have to mention only achievements. Now, your friend's SOP may have only achievements, and you feel that if you mention any weakness, then your SOP is going to be weaker. That is a myth, because if you have certain INBD attempts, or if you took certain attempts to get a certain TOEFL score, maybe you have a low GPA, then this is the document where you should be mentioning it, because SOP is something that the admission committee thoroughly reviews, and it gives a glimpse of who you are to the admissions committee. So you should be mentioning as many things that you want to tell them in this SOP. And also assuming that this would be something that they would overlook, or something they would not give too much importance to when picking you. That is absolutely wishful thinking, because they have thousands of applications who they have to pick from. So you'd rather not give them a chance to wonder why this person has these many attempts, and you'd rather mention everything as much as you can in this SOP and leave no stone unturned. All right, that's it for this video. I hope this was helpful and informative. If you want further information on the international pathway to the US in dentistry, or CAAPID, or even dentistry in general, do consider subscribing to this channel and watch out for more videos.